Well, hello there. Welcome to a video about basic sound. What am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about basic sound. In particular, what I want to do is just really look very briefly at this idea of playing sounds in programs, because it's clearly something that we want to do, right? Sound is great. Sound leads to much more expressive programs, much more communicative programs, potentially much more usable programs. The kinds of sounds that we choose to sort of come out of our programs can change absolutely everything about what our program means, how people feel about it, and more. So clearly it's something that we want to do. And all I want to cover today is just the very, very basics of how we do that with a P5 program, okay? So we're not going to go too deep, we're just going to get sounds playing. So to that end, let's go over to our little template project with nothing in it right now. And the first point that I want to make here is that P5, sort of the basic P5 that we've been using to this point, doesn't do sound on its own, just by default. In fact, there's a separate library, and if I go to our libraries folder here, there's a separate library called p5.sound. And this file is p5.sound.min.js because that's the library in its compressed state. But p5.sound handles playing sound stuff in P5 programs. It's already included in the template, okay? Just so that you know that you're actually dealing with a separate library. It has separate documentation as well, which we can take a quick look at. The other thing, so we've got the file here, p5.sound.min.js. That's important in the js/libraries folder. The other thing that's important is that we include, or we have a script tag for that library, that JavaScript, in our index.html. You can see I'm including it here after I include p5.min.js. We have the same kind of script tag, but we're including p5.sound.min.js. So our programs are ready to play sounds. We just need to know how. Okay. So let's do this. There's not much more to talk about except to just sort of do this. So let's think of an example. So we want to play a sound. I have one prepared earlier, as you might imagine. The first thing that we're going to need, just it's kind of like it is with images in P5, we're going to need a variable to store the sound in. So I'm going to call mine bark_sfx. And I'm calling it bark_sfx. I could have just called it bark, because it's the sound of barking is what I'm going to use. But I'm calling it bark_sfx just to be that little bit extra more clear in my programming, because it tells me what's going to be in the variable in a helpful way. So bark_sfx for bark sound effect. So I need the variable to store it in. I declare that at the top. Then I need to load the sound into the variable. To do that, I put my cursor in the wrong place. How humiliating. I'm going to need to use a preload function, because just like with images or other kind of larger files, we're going to want to load them in the preload function so that our program doesn't behave strangely if files take a little longer to load than we expect. So to do that, we're going to say bark_sfx, which is my variable I want to store the sound in. I'm going to assign to it, so I'm going to store something in it. And I'm going to use this function called load sound. And I tell load sound the location of my sound file, which is in assets/sounds/bark.wav. So it's a WAV file. WAV is the file extension here. That's a file format. So this line is going to take that sound, bark.wav. We can go over here to assets actually on the left-hand side and sounds. And there is bark.wav right there. That's what a barking dog looks like, apparently. It may not look like a barking dog, but it sure does sound like one. We don't really need to look at these sound files. It's just pointing out that it's there. Okay. So with this line, we load that sound into our variable. Then I guess, we want some of a program, because where would we be without a 500 by 500 canvas and a black background? But none of that matters to playing sounds. The simplest thing that we could do is we could play the sound whenever the user clicks the mouse. So we'll have a mouse pressed function that will trigger whenever the mouse gets pressed. It's an event handler function. And in order to play the sound, we say the name of our variable with the sound in it, bark.sfx, dot, because we want to do something inside that. We're used to this with JavaScript objects accessing a property. Here we're going to access a function that this object has available because it is a sound, which is called play. So we say bark_sfx dot play, with parentheses at the end, and that will call the play function on this sound, which will then proceed to make it play every time we click on the mouse, because it's inside the mouse pressed function. Okay, so if we go over to our program where it is running, there is our beautiful 500 by 500 canvas with a black background. If I click now, 1, 2, 3, we hear a dog barking because it played the sound file, and that's what the sound file sounds like. So that's great. That's what I wanted. Every time I click, dog barks, and on we go. One thing we can notice is if I click while the file is playing, you can hear it kind of plays again when I click, right? So it sort of restarts in a way. That's the default behavior when we play a sound file. A quick word on sound file formats. Be aware that different browsers play different sound files. Some of them, I mean, it's sad that it's as confusing as it is, but for example, a .wav file, a WAV file, that will play on basically every browser except Microsoft Edge for some reason. An MP3 works on pretty much every browser. OGG files work on Chrome, Firefox, and Opera, and you know, the list goes on. So MP3s are pretty safe, although they have their own foibles. One thing that's disappointing is if I go and look at my developer console, my JavaScript console, you can see an error here, and it's occurring every time I click. So if I reload my page and I click now, woof, we got an error, right? And if I click again, the error goes up. It goes up by 2 every time, which is kind of weird. And the error says, uncaught type error, cannot read property length of undefined at ringbuffer.push. Oh my god, I don't want to know. Generally speaking, errors are bad, of course, and we would like to fix them. But this error is inside p5.sound.js, and it's not something that we can fix. It's unfortunate. It's a case where the library has gone a little bit out of date and it's conflicting with something in the browser. This is one of those instances where, because we can't fix it and because the sound file still plays and does what we want, we're going to ignore that red error, hard though that is. It's just not our responsibility, basically. That's sad. However, it's not sad. And I'll close this so it's less depressing, because we've got a barking dog. Every time I want, make that dog bark. Times are good. Okay, little duet with the dog there. So to some extent that's it, except that there's one thing that you will probably want to do that's not going to work, and that's always a bit disappointing. So one thing that you probably will want to do is you'll excitedly download your favorite music. I'm going to reload this to music, rename it. Not reloading it. So let's imagine a situation where we've got some music, like this, right? Beautiful orchestral, lush music from Zelda Breath of the Wind or whatever it is. Maybe it's Kraftwerk, doesn't matter. For now, I'm just going to load the same barking sound because I don't actually have any music on me right now. So it's just going to be a dog barking, which is its own kind of music after all. And the thing that you're probably going to want to do is in setup, right at the start of your program, you're going to be saying, oh, I'll play the music here, music.play. Like that. And it did just bark then, right? We heard it when I saved the file. However, generally speaking, if I reload this page, no barking, no music. Reload, no music, reload, no music, reload, no music. What's going on? What's going on is that browsers these days do not let you play sounds until the user has interacted with the web page. If again we go back to our JavaScript console over here and we read it, we can see these yellow errors, right? Again, there's a few things going on here, but most of them are the same one. The audio context was not allowed to start. It must be resumed or created after a user gesture on the page. By user gesture, they mean the page needs to detect some user input. Most obviously, this is that they click their mouse or they hit a key on the keyboard, and only after that has happened the first time, so they need to do it at least once, only after that can we play sounds, right? So the dog bark before was working when we clicked because it was happening after we'd clicked the mouse. With the music, we're trying to play the music right at the beginning of the program, and that's going to happen before the user interacts with our page, and so it's being prevented by the browser. So that kind of sucks. It's a bit disappointing. And there are ways of getting around this. There are lots of different ways of getting around this, more than I can list. So I'm just going to offer up one way that we could do this. One way that we could do this is, well, clearly we're not going to try and play it in setup because we know that that's not going to work. So let's give up on that. One thing that we could do instead is we could sort of lie in wait, lurking in the long grasses for a mouse pressed, which we know is one of the interactions that will allow us to play music. And we'll also listen for a key pressed, because that's another one that will allow us to start playing our music. And when that happens, when they click the mouse or they press a key for the first time, then we're going to want to start playing our music, right? However, there's something that we want to avoid. We know that if we play some music or play a sound file, every time we play it, it's going to start from the beginning, right? So we don't want to just say music.play here, because if we do that, and I guess we could do it here too, then every time I click the mouse or press a key, it's going to start playing my beautiful dog music again, right? And that's not what I want. I want it to just play seamlessly from the beginning after the very first interaction in this instance. So this is not going to work completely. The other thing that's not going to work about this is it's only going to play the music once. And often when you play music, you want it to loop, right? You want it to keep playing. After it finishes, you want it to go back to the beginning. So that bit's easy. There's actually a function called loop that allows us to do exactly that. So this will do the same thing. It will play my music, the dog barking, but it will play it over and over again. We can get an example of that if I head over there now. So I click the mouse, and the dog sings forever, right? And that was my first interaction with the page, and so that's great. The problem that we have right now is that if I click again, or a few times, during the time that I interact with the page, it's going to restart that sound, right? So we're going to get this: click, 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 click. I mean, this is a cool sonic effect, right? It's starting a new version of the sound file every time I click, and it sounds amazing. But it's probably not what I wanted to happen. I really only want to start it playing the one time, because it's meant to be music, even though it sounded quite musical just before. To do that, I need to check whether it's already playing before I play it, right? So I would do something like this. If, and this is where I can use another function, I should say, from the P5 sound library. Oopsie daisy. So the thing that I can do is I can ask the music if it's already playing. If music.isPlaying. So this will be true if the music is already playing. So I only want to play the music if it's false, right? And if I want to do that, then I put an exclamation mark in front of it. So I'm saying if it's not the case that the music is playing right now, when I click the mouse, right, because we're inside mouse press, then start playing the music. And I want to do exactly the same thing down here in key pressed. When I press a key, if the music's not already playing, start playing it. And then I would notice, because I am a proper programmer with a professional attitude towards programming, that I've got the same code in two places, so I should make it a function. I'll call it try music. And that code would go in there, and then I could just call try music in both of these places. So now, whenever I click the mouse or press a key, one of the things that my program is going to do, technically it's the only thing right now, is it will try to start playing the music, but it will only start playing the music if it's not already playing. So I don't get that kind of layered effect. So now if I head over to my program here, if I click once, dog gets going, but now I'm clicking and pressing keys, and I still just get that one beautiful musical track of a dog barking. Really should have thought that through a little better when I chose this file. Okay, so that is what I've got to say about music and sound, sorry. The key thing is you load a sound into a variable, and then you play it either with, in this instance, music.play to play it once, music.loop to play it over and over again, and then you need to remember that you're not allowed to play a sound before the user has either clicked or pressed a key, for example, and so you need to come up with a solution for that if, for example, you want to play music at the beginning of your program. And this is a fairly simple and crude way of doing that. There are other ways of doing it, of course, and you will no doubt learn them as you continue on your beautiful voyage through programming. That, as they say, is that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.